Sup, everybody? Welcome back to TPS. Having the first overall pick in the NFL usually means two things. Either you'll draft a superstar that will change your franchise, or you will draft a big-time bust that will leave you forever in regret, wondering what could have been. A large portion of the NFL's greatest players were top selections, but as 5 guys on our list will show you, being the first overall pick doesn't always guarantee success. Rather, it can turn out to be the opposite. I'm Justin Fraction, and today we present the NFL's 5 best and 5 worst overall draft picks of all time. At TPS, we post videos every single day, so don't forget to click the subscribe button to subscribe. Then click the notification bell to be notified when we post a new video. As always, leave your ideas down below. You never know, we might use one and give you a shout out and write the video and present the video. You don't have to do a whole lot. Just say, hey, can you make a list of this, and then we'll make it. That's what we do here. Number 5, best Terry Bradshaw, 1970. The Pittsburgh Steelers drafted the Louisiana Tech product with the top selection in 1970, which was the first step towards putting together a 70s dynasty. 4 years later, the Steelers drafted 4 future Hall of Famers in Jack Lambert, John Stallworth, Mike Webster, and Lynn Swann. With that, the championship puzzle was in place. Even though the Steelers were undoubtedly carried by the steel curtain defense, Bradshaw was also one of the most prolific quarterbacks of the 70s. The Steelers won 4 Lombardi trophies in the 70s, and Bradshaw was named Super Bowl MVP twice. He was also a 3-time Pro Bowler and won the 1978 NFL MVP award. And finally, Bradshaw led the NFL in passing touchdowns during the 1978 and 82 seasons. Bradshaw took a long, struggling Steelers franchise and turned them into one of America's most iconic and successful sports teams. Bradshaw has since been inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's simply quite impossible to guess where this franchise would have gone without his greatness. Number 5, worst, Courtney Brown, 2000. The Cleveland Browns spent almost 2 decades wasting all of these top 5 draft selections. Obviously, things began changing once they hit home runs on Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward, and Myles Garrett. But long before these guys, the Browns were drafting guys that made little to no impact at the NFL level. Take the case of Courtney Brown, the can't-miss defensive end product out of Penn State. What a wonderful school that is. For example, Brown was one of the greatest pass-rushing prospects ever seen at the time. He was a 1999 consensus All-American and was named both Big Ten lineman and Defensive Player of the Year, too. Brown showed some promise in his rookie season after recording 4.5 sacks, but Cleveland wouldn't get much more out of him. He never recorded more than 6 sacks in a season, and the Browns moved on from him after the 2004 season. Brown had a brief stop in Denver, but was out of the NFL after the 2006 season, 6 years after he was drafted with the expectations of saving a losing franchise. Number 4, best, Bruce Smith, 1985. When you think of the 90s Buffalo Bills powerhouse that reached 4 straight Super Bowls, you usually think of 3 Hall of Famers on offense: Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, and Andre Reed. But let's not forget about the all-time sacks leader, Bruce Smith, whom the Bills took with the top selection in 1985. Smith was everything teams look for in a pass rusher. He was named to 11 Pro Bowls, won the 1990 and 1996 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and was an 8-time first-team All-Pro. Did we mention his 200 career sacks are the most in NFL history? And should we add that he helped the Bills reach 4 straight Super Bowls in the 90s? Not only that, but Smith was named to the 80s and 90s All-Decade team as well. Smith recorded double-digit sacks in 13 of his 19 NFL seasons, including 5 seasons of 14 or more sacks. He had an incredible 19 sacks during his 1990 campaign. I'd say that it's a pretty good use of a first overall pick, wouldn't you? Number 4, worst, KI-JANA Carter, 1995. The Bengals entered some dark days in the early to mid-90s after reaching 2 Super Bowls in the 80s. Well, the Bengals swung a deal with the Carolina Panthers to land the first overall pick in 1995, and they were in prime position to change the franchise's fortune around. The Bengals settled on Penn State running back KI-JANA Carter with the top selection. He was coming off of a Rose Bowl MVP performance and had been named a consensus All-American. There was nothing to dislike about this pick at the time, or so we thought. Unfortunately, Carter just couldn't stay healthy, missing his entire rookie campaign after suffering a torn ligament in preseason play. Carter was only healthy for 2 years in Cincinnati, having never rushed for more than 464 yards in a single season. Carter played just a total of 4 games over the 1998 and 99 seasons due to wrist and knee injuries. The Bengals moved on from Carter after the 1999 season, and he had stops in Washington and New Orleans before retiring. 4 of the next 5 picks after Carter became Pro Bowlers, including future MVP Steve McNair. Number 3, best, Chuck BEDNARIK, 1949. Simply put, Chuck was one of the most feared and dominant players in NFL history. He played his entire career with the Philadelphia Eagles from 1949 to 1962. The stud linebacker and offensive lineman out of Pennsylvania, what a great state that is, was everything the Eagles dreamed of when they took him first overall. BEDNARIK did most of his damage as a linebacker, but he also played center on offense. He got the Eagles to NFL championships in 1949 and 1960. BEDNARIK was a 10-time first-team All-Pro and 8-time Pro Bowler. The 6'3", 233-pound beast completely revolutionized the linebacker position. Before he arrived in 1949, nobody had seen a defensive player take over games like he did. BEDNARIK was simply in a class of his own. The Pro Football Hall of Famer was named the 35th best player of all time by the NFL Network. To us, he's the third greatest number 1 overall pick of all time. Number 3 worst, David Carr, 2002. The Houston Texans became the NFL's 32nd franchise in 2002, and the expansion team was awarded the first overall pick that same year. They used it on Fresno State quarterback David Carr, who had thrown 46 touchdowns in his final year of college. Unfortunately, the Texans weren't able to surround Carr with much talent. He was thrown into the fire right away and wasn't able to get anything going. He was sacked 76 times in his rookie year, a single-season NFL record. Carr spent 5 seasons in Houston and never threw more than 16 touchdowns in any of them. Over his 5 years with the Texans, Carr compiled a woeful 22nd and 53 record. He had just 59 touchdowns against a whopping 65 interceptions. On the bright side, Carr did go on to win a Super Bowl as Eli Manning's backup with the New York Giants during the 2011 season, and David's younger brother Derek has gone on to become a solid quarterback in the NFL. Number 2, best, John Elway, 1983. The Baltimore Colts actually drafted Elway first overall in 1983, but he refused to play for them. The Colts agreed to send Elway to the Denver Broncos in exchange for Mark Herman, Chris Hinton, and a 1984 first-round draft pick. Over 3.5 decades later, I think we all have a firm idea of who won that trade. Elway rescued a long-time losing Broncos organization and turned them into one of the NFL's top teams of the 80s. They reached 3 Super Bowls that decade, but lost every single one of them. Still, Elway had established himself as one of the NFL's best quarterbacks, winning the 1987 NFL MVP and becoming a perennial Pro Bowler. Elway and the Broncos endured heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak throughout the first half of the 90s. But in 1997, Elway and the Broncos finally broke through. They reached Super Bowl 32 and defeated the heavily favored defending champion Green Bay Packers. Finally, Elway won it all, 4th time's a charm. Elway led the Broncos to another Super Bowl appearance in his swan song season, where they defeated the Atlanta Falcons 34-19. When it was all said and done, the Hall of Famer had led Denver to consecutive Super Bowls to close out his career. If that wasn't enough, Elway later took over as the Broncos' president and GM, and he built up their Super Bowl 50 championship team. 3 Lombardi trophies in the Mile High City, brought to you in part by a former first overall pick. Number 2 worst, Tim Couch, 1999. The Browns were reactivated for the 1999 season after the original franchise had relocated to Baltimore in '96. That was only part of the excitement. The Browns also got the first overall pick in 1999, and they wasted it on Kentucky quarterback Tim Couch. The 1998 consensus All-American and SEC Player of the Year brought a tremendous skill set, and the Browns had every reason to be excited about this guy. But unfortunately for Couch and the Browns organization, he just wasn't able to adapt to the NFL level. Couch was Cleveland's starter for 5 years, but he played only 16 games in a season once. He compiled a record of 22-37, tossing a mere 64 touchdowns against 67 interceptions. The Browns did make the playoffs in 2002, but they narrowly fell to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card round. Other than that one playoff appearance, Couch did next to nothing in Cleveland. He would later sign with the Green Bay Packers and Jacksonville Jaguars, but Couch never made the final 53-man roster and was released by both teams. Number 1, best, Peyton Manning, 1998. The 98 NFL draft class was all about 2 can't-miss prospects, Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. One is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, the other is quite possibly the biggest draft bust in history. Which one do you think Peyton Manning is? Manning told the Indianapolis Colts if they didn't take him first overall, he'd come back and kick their butt. They wisely listened to Manning, while the San Diego Chargers traded up to take Leaf with the number 2 selection. Manning made good on his promise with the Colts. All he did was take them to the playoffs in 11 of his 13 seasons as a starter. This included 2 AFC championship victories and a Super Bowl 41 championship. Manning also won 4 MVP awards during his tenure with the Colts. Manning missed all the 2011 season with a neck injury, and the Colts would earn the first overall pick in 2012 as a result. They would end up using that pick to take Peyton Manning's successor, Andrew Luck. Meanwhile, Manning joined the Denver Broncos and took them to Super Bowls 48 and 50, winning the latter. Oh, and he won the 2013 NFL MVP award and became the NFL's all-time passing yards and TD leader before retiring. 5 MVPs, 14 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowls, and he retired with countless quarterback records. The Colts went from longtime loser to an AFC powerhouse under Manning. We'd say he was totally worth the first overall pick. How about you? Number 1, JAMARCUS Russell, 2007. For the Raiders, it was an easy choice to take LSU quarterback JAMARCUS Russell with the first overall pick in 2007. After all, they were in desperate need of a quarterback, and he was a top QB available in a class that didn't have many quality signal callers. After being drafted, Russell held out during training camp and preseason until finally signing his deal in mid-September. Russell appeared in just 4 games during his rookie season. In his sophomore year, he struggled quite a bit, and 2009 was a make-or-break year for his career. Russell was benched in his 3rd NFL season, and he would never play in the NFL again. He went 7-18 as a starter with 18 touchdowns and 23 interceptions. Russell attempted an NFL comeback later on, but it didn't go anywhere. Not even having played 3 full seasons, Russell has to be considered one of the biggest draft busts in NFL history. Who do you think is the greatest and the worst first pick in NFL history? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.